June 19, 1986. 11 a.m. Barre, Vermont. The weather is humid. The sky is a flat, expansive sheet of gray, threatening rain that hasn't yet fallen. The air smells of wet pine, diesel fumes, and the metallic dust that drifts up from the granite quarries below. At the H.G. Smith Scenic Overlook on Route 302, the world is usually quiet. It is a transitional space. A patch of gravel and grass where tourists stop to cool their radiators or check their road maps before descending into the Connecticut River Valley. Today, a town maintenance worker is cutting the grass. He moves in lines, back and forth, the engine of his mower drowning out the sound of the traffic on the state highway. He kills the engine. He hears something near the wood line, where the manicured grass gives way to a dense tangle of brush and birch trees. It is a dog. A small, white poodle. The animal is tied to a tree. It is frantic, tangling itself in its own leash, barking at the empty air. The worker approaches, assuming the dog has been abandoned, a cruel but common act in rural areas. He steps into the high grass. He reaches for the dog. And then he sees what the dog is guarding. 10 feet away, partially obscured by the ferns, lies a human shape. She is face down. She is fully clothed. Her backpack is nearby, untouched. The silence of the Vermont woods rushes back in, heavy and suffocating. The pilgrim had stopped walking. Good evening. In the summer of 1986, the United States was a country in transition. The Cold War was thawing, but the fear of nuclear annihilation was still a palpable, low-frequency hum in the back of the American psyche. It was into this atmosphere that 27-year-old Leslie Spellman stepped onto the road. Leslie was not a drifter in the traditional sense. She was a woman of intent, hailing from Astoria, Oregon, a rugged town of steep hills and crashing Pacific waves. She was accustomed to the road. She was intelligent, artistic, and driven by a singular idealism. She called it a peace walk. Her plan was ambitious: to walk and hitchhike from Ashtabula, Ohio, to the rocky coast of Maine. She wanted to talk to people. She wanted to bridge the gap between strangers in an era of increasing isolation. Look at the photograph in the case file. Leslie sits with her dog, Taylor. There is a gentleness in her face. Next to her, a sign for the Astiku Azalea Garden. This image is the tragedy of the case distilled into a single frame. The garden is in Northeast Harbor, Maine. It is a place of serenity, inspired by Japanese design. Leslie Spellman never saw that garden. She never smelled the azaleas. She died 300 miles short of that sign, her skull fractured in a roadside turnout in the Green Mountains. This is not just a story about a murder. It is a forensic examination of a geographic displacement. A woman from the Pacific Northwest, walking out of the Rust Belt, was killed in New England. Tonight, we strip away the rumors. We ignore the folklore of the hitchhiker warning. We are going to look at the timeline, the physics of the crime scene, and the forensic void of 1986 that allowed a brutal killer to drive away into the fog. This is the file on Leslie Spellman. To understand the victimology, we must look at Leslie Spellman not as a headline, but as a kinetic force. By 1986, hitchhiking had fallen out of favor. The summer of love was dead. The 1970s perpetuated the fear of the serial killer, Ted Bundy, Ed Kemper. By the mid-80s, a woman alone on the side of the road was seen as inviting disaster. Leslie rejected this fear. She had spent time in Ashtabula, Ohio, visiting her mother. But the road called her. She packed a Kelvinator brand backpack, a heavy frame pack typical of the era. Inside, a sleeping bag, a few changes of clothes, a journal, and dog food for Taylor. Taylor was her shield. A white poodle might not seem like a guard dog, but for a solo female traveler, the dog was an alarm system. Leslie believed in the inherent goodness of the American public. She wasn't naive, she was optimistic. She believed that if she carried a message of peace, she would receive peace in return. She left Ohio on June 13, 1986. Trace the route on a map. She moved east, across the industrial spine of Pennsylvania and New York. By June 17th, she had crossed into the Adirondacks. By June 18th, she was in Vermont. Witnesses remember her. This is crucial. In 1986, a hitchhiker might blend in. But a woman with a bright white poodle? That sticks in the memory. She was described as pleasant, articulate, and calm. She wasn't desperate. She wasn't begging. She was traveling. She arrived in Waterbury, Vermont, on the afternoon of the 18th. Waterbury is a small junction town, the gateway to the ski resorts. It was here that the timeline began to blur. She was seen alive near the interchange of Interstate 89 and Route 100. The sun was setting. The shadows were getting long. She needed one last ride to push east toward the New Hampshire border. Someone stopped. The car door opened. Taylor jumped in. Leslie followed. And the peace walk ended. We need to dissect the geography of Barre, Vermont. This is not a ski resort town. Barre is blue-collar. It is built on granite. The quarries here are deep, gray scars in the earth. The population is hardened, industrious. Route 302 cuts through the town and winds up toward the H.G. Smith Overlook. The Overlook is isolated. It sits high up, offering a view of the rolling hills. At night, it is pitch black. There are no streetlights. The timeline of the 18th and 19th. June 18th, late afternoon. Leslie is in Waterbury. June 18th, evening. It is believed she accepted a ride. The distance from Waterbury to the Overlook is roughly 20 miles. A 30-minute drive. The critical gap, from sunset on the 18th to 11 a.m. on the 19th. The police believe she was killed at the location where she was found. This is a vital distinction. If she were killed elsewhere and dumped, the evidence trail is scattered. But the scene tells a different story. The dog was tied to the tree. The backpack was found nearby. This suggests a stop. A voluntary exit from the vehicle. Let's pull over here. Let the dog out. It suggests a ruse. The killer didn't drag her deep into the woods. She was found just 30 feet from the pavement. This indicates haste. It indicates a killer who was comfortable enough to stop, but panicked enough to leave the body in a place where discovery was inevitable. He didn't bury her. He didn't cover her with branches. He struck her, tethered the dog, and fled. The weather that night was foggy. Visibility was low. This helped the killer. A car parked at the Overlook at 10 p.m. would be invisible from the road until you were right on top of it. The isolation was total. We must address the limitations of 1986. In 2024, a crime scene like this would be a goldmine. Touch DNA on the dog's leash. Trace fibers on Leslie's clothing. Cell phone triangulation. In 1986, the Vermont State Police were working with analog tools. The cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head. The medical examiner's report was brutal in its clinical efficiency. Multiple fractures. The weapon? Never found. Likely a tire iron. A heavy flashlight. A rock was found at the scene. This speaks to the nature of the crime. Was it premeditated? If you bring a gun, you plan to kill. If you use a rock or a tire iron, the intent often forms in the moment. An argument. A rejection. A sudden snap of the psyche. The sexual aspect. The autopsy revealed no overt evidence of sexual assault. Her clothing was largely intact. However, criminology tells us that sex is often the motive, even if the act is not completed. Did she refuse in advance? Did the killer become impotent with rage? The violence was directed at her head, a personal attempt to erase the identity of the victim. The dog as evidence. Let's go back to Taylor. The killer took the time to tie the dog to a birch tree. Psychologically, this is the most baffling piece of the puzzle. A disorganized, frenzied killer usually kills the animal to stop the barking. A cold, pragmatic killer might shoot the dog. But this killer spared the dog. Was it a moment of remorse? I've killed the girl, I won't kill the dog. Or was it control? Did he tie the dog up first while Leslie was still alive? Tie the dog up, Leslie. We're going to talk. The leash is a piece of evidence. The killer touched it. The killer manipulated the clasp. In 1986, they dusted for prints. Today, that leash is a reservoir of genetic material. The investigation began with a roar. The Vermont State Police, known for their thoroughness, canvassed every house within miles of the Overlook. They checked gas stations, diners, and campgrounds. The canoe lead. A witness came forward with a detail that has haunted this case for 38 years. A vehicle was spotted at the H.G. Smith Overlook during the critical window. It wasn't just a car. It had a canoe strapped to the roof. Analyze this. A canoe implies a tourist, or a local sportsman. It implies someone prepared for the outdoors. If you are driving a car with a canoe, you are memorable. You are distinctive. Police searched for a darker-colored sedan, possibly a Chevy or a Saab, with a canoe rack. They checked registration records for canoe owners. They checked campgrounds at Groton State Forest nearby. Thousands of leads. But the canoe man vanished. Was he the killer? Or was he just a man who parked to sleep, saw something he didn't want to get involved in, and fled? Or did he see nothing at all, unaware that 20 feet away, Leslie Spellman lay dying? The Connecticut River Valley Killer connection. We must acknowledge the context. In the mid to late 1980s, the Connecticut River Valley, spanning New Hampshire and Vermont, was a hunting ground. A serial predator was attacking women. Jane Borowski. The stabbing victim survived. The MO involved stabbing. Leslie was bludgeoned. The geography overlaps. The victim profile, young women, vulnerable, overlaps. But the signature is different. Is Leslie a forgotten victim of the Valley Killer? Or was this a separate predator? The canoe suggests a different profile. A camper. A transient. The Astiku letter. Among Leslie's possessions and the letters sent to her family later was the heartbreaking realization of her destination. She was walking to the Astiku azalea garden to meet a friend. The police interviewed everyone in her circle. The friend was cleared. The circle of suspicion tightened, then evaporated. The killer was a stranger. This is the hardest crime to solve. No prior relationship. No motive other than opportunity. A collision of two trajectories on a lonely road. Where does the case stand today? The file is not closed. It is classified as active/unsolved. The Vermont State Police Major Crime Unit has preserved the evidence. Leslie's clothes. The dog's leash. The backpack. In the last decade, forensic genealogy has revolutionized cold cases. We have seen the Golden State Killer caught. We have seen the horrific murder of Christy Myrick solved after 26 years. The VSP has submitted evidence for advanced DNA testing. The verdict is currently silence. But silence in 2024 is different from silence in 1986. Today, silence means the lab is working. It means they are building a family tree. The killer may be in his 60s or 70s now. He may be dead, but his genetic code is likely sitting in a database, waiting for the right algorithm to connect the dots. Let's finish the walk for her. Imagine the destination, the Astiku Azalea Garden. The path winds through moss-covered rocks. The water reflects the sky. It is quiet. This is where Leslie belonged. She was not a statistic. She was a daughter, a sister, and a seeker. She carried a heavy pack so she could carry a light spirit. Her murder was a theft, not just of a life, but of the potential that life held. She wanted to prove that the world was safe, that people were good. The tragedy is not that she was wrong about everyone, it's that she was wrong about one person. And that one person took everything. The person who killed Leslie Spellman might still be out there. Or, someone who knows him is listening. Think back to June 1986. Did you know a man who drove a dark sedan with a canoe rack? Did a family member come home from a trip to Vermont acting strange? Anxious? Did someone you know get rid of a car suddenly in the summer of '86? Did someone obsessively clean their vehicle? The smallest detail matters. A name. A license plate partial. A rumor you heard at a bar in Barre 30 years ago. The dog, Taylor, couldn't speak. But you can. If you have any information regarding the murder of Leslie Spellman, please contact the Vermont State Police Major Crime Unit. You can call directly at 8022448-781. If you wish to remain anonymous, you can text the keyword tips to 274,637 crimes. Again, that is keyword VTIPS to 274637. Don't let the pilgrim walk alone forever. Enter the Crime is the channel and this is the file.